This is Sportish.
Do it better.
This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish.
Okay, so this is Sportish. It's a show that we started ostensibly to talk about sports during a global sports shutdown. Geoff Brault, Dr. Keith Strudler, he runs the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University. Shout out to Mike Wallace, our producer, for figuring out a way to let us record a little bit later this week. Dateline, November 4th. It's about 8:37 in the morning on the East Coast on Wednesday as we are recording this. You are watching it live for the first time on For the Fans at midnight. Some will call that Wednesday night. Others will call it Thursday morning. Your mileage may vary. You could be listening on your favorite podcast network at some point thereafter. Okay. Keith, the world that we live in now is, and let's keep in mind, you look like you had quite a long night there with the Heineken and the red Solo cup behind you. You seem to be wearing your tunic from the 1720s, maybe left over from a high school production of Jesus Christ Superstar. I'm working on maybe 2.5 hours of sleep. I've scrolled through Twitter so much, I think they've just stopped refreshing my feed. We don't have a president. I mean, we do. No. It's still Donald Trump until January 20th, but we don't know who it is after that.
No.
And I got to be honest, my brain is rattled a little bit.
So I'm going to take this moment and speak directly to you, the Sportish viewer. There are a number of you that have chosen to watch this show live at midnight Wednesday night, or of course 9 o'clock on the West Coast, which I prefer.
Also, I hate to jump in, not live. They're watching it taped. 8:39 a.m. on Wednesday, November 4th.
Live to you. Now, I'm going to assume that at that point, at the point that you are watching it, the country is literally being torn in two, and we are still unable to decide who is the next president of the United States. I also assume that you have now actively made the decision to not switch to a news network to chronicle potentially the end of the world. So there is a chance that we are speaking to you, and this is the first time that you have been made aware that there is a presidential election going on, because you, and we love you, our Sportish viewers, there is no one we care about more than you. We're here for you. That's why we're here. We realize that right now you are probably simply killing the moment in between gambling fixes. And that's good. So the only reason you may be aware that this election is close is because you may have realized Vegas was getting hot and heavy on the action, and there was a big fat middle to bet on where you could win both ways. So that's the nice switch. So not only do we want to give you you may still believe that Ronald Reagan is in his 5th or 6th term as president right now. You may still believe that. If that is the case, we welcome you to the political conversation. I personally applaud your resolve, your steadfast interest in caring what you care about, and we will bring to you a show that walks that fine line between hiding under the table and talking about Nebraska's departure from the Big Ten. So there's no one I'd rather spend 48 minutes with right now than this group of viewers. This group of viewers that went to bed last night worrying about one thing and one thing only. And that is there any way Ohio State can cover this weekend? That
it all comes full circle, right? Because Nebraska 2 gives that weird congressional district electoral vote to Biden that could be the difference in this entire thing. It really looks like it might be trending to a 270, 268 finish.
It could happen.
Nebraska loses to Ohio State. They get shellacked by Ohio State in what is their only football game that they've been able to play this season, because we have a president who doesn't care about the coronavirus pandemic. Nebraska, however, despite not being able to play a couple of football games, or at least one football game because other players, teams have COVID-19 outbreaks, complains about not being able to play other teams during those bye weeks and thinks that the entire world is against them. Boy, I wonder if there's a parallel to that in anything that we're talking about in these elections. Okay, I like the prism that you've set for us.
By the way, just a little FYI, the cat has decided to make her reappearance on the show. So just be forewarned, she is uneasy about the state of affairs right now as well. So it is all coming to the close. Of course, that is a remnant from the Heineken and the Solo Cup. I always pull that out during close elections. So, by the way, the best, I too found myself going down the rabbit hole of social last night. And my favorite post in our town about that was on Facebook last night, and it was election related, as literally as the world is ready, as the country is ready to implode, right? And the vitriol has reached an epic high and conspiracy theory kind of reigns. One person, God bless them, said, anyone know who won the school board election last night?
There have been a ton of great tweets like that. There was one, I think, from the Portland Press Herald in Maine, where they were like, we're still counting. While you're here, you might want to check on that sewer initiative.
like the world goes on. Like I got up and worked out this morning. I'm still sweating right now, as you can tell. We got stuff to do, right? Kids got to play soccer. I mean, we got stuff to do.
The lies we tell ourselves that you're sweating because you worked out. I like the prism, right? Of that we're talking to someone who doesn't know that an election is still going on. I mean, we still have essentially no idea. And again, it's about 20 minutes to 9 in the morning on Wednesday, November 4th. We don't know really what's going to happen. No one has, let's put it this way. No one, except possibly Joe Jorgensen, has a worse than 25% chance. So it could be curtains for Joe, but there's another Joe who is still very much alive. And honestly, depending on which channel you're watching, I'm not sure which one is which. But if you were to watch what went on last night in America, and you were to watch it through this prism of not having any knowledge about what had gone on in America in the previous 4 years, and you can even extend it past that, 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, whatever, it would be, so I think two things would be stunning. The first would be that this is how this process works. And the second thing that I think
water, folks, it's just water.
Same. And the second thing that I think would be so stunning is the way that we treat the release of our election results. Because it felt like I was watching a sporting event. I mean, it had the exact ebbs and flows of a sporting event. And not only that, every single thing was related back to a sports metaphor. We're just in the first quarter, guys. There's a lot of game left to play. And honestly, regardless of how this thing shakes out, I don't like that. That's not good. We got to get out of that mentality, right?
Well,
because it was also...
Maybe we can move into the 21st century and start using technology. I mean, there are ways that this doesn't have to happen. There are ways. Like, well, I can order a pizza. I can have a pizza at my house before this show ends with this thing. I mean, so let's not say it can't happen.
But do you know what the issue with that is I can have a pizza to your house before this show ends too.
Good. By the way, maybe to extend the sports metaphor, it's like the NBA. I don't care what the score is in the first half. It's always tied with 2 minutes to go. That is the end. When people get excited about NBA games in the first quarter, I'm like, it will be tied with 2 minutes to go.
But look at all the parallels we could draw, right? So you have all these prediction markets. And if you're a fan of the NFL, you know all about the prediction markets because you spend 6 days a week listening to people talk to you about what's going to happen in something they have no idea what's going to happen in. And these people are experts, which means maybe they've studied it for a while, which means maybe they played the sport, which means whatever. They're using that base of knowledge to try to make predictions about something with which they really cannot reliably predict. And then we get to the day and it just all starts this crazy, they set these like, it's probably like a 75% chance that'll happen. And then you see it start to happen in a different way. And they're like, oh, well, that's surprising, but it's not totally unexpected because we knew this could go. And then you see like the mental gymnastics that they do in the reporting, and then people freak out, right? So there was a time last night while these election returns were being reported that someone on this podcast thought it was curtains, thought that the result was foretold, and that we were done. We were done for.
If you read, I believe, look, I don't think our politics are too difficult to figure out. As much as we like to play it straight, Geoff has never met a scone and a latte he doesn't like, and I. And I spend my spare time binge reading old copies of the New Yorker magazine. Take what you want from. I'm just saying. So if you read the text I sent last night, let me put it this way: Michael Wallace would actually earn his keep as a producer.
But there was, to continue the metaphor, that was the second quarter, right? And in the second quarter,
it's a big second quarter. There was a scoring binge. That was Washington in the Super Bowl, in the 1988 Super Bowl against Denver. And John Elway was Joe Biden at that point. John Elway's like, what's happening here? I was at that game.
But that's my point. And that's why I really bristle at the fact that we were treating the returns like a sporting event, because it went the way it was always expected to go. That because of how this year was, this was not at all unexpected, the way that this count has gone, the way that as of 8:48 a.m. on Monday morning, November 4th, we do not know who won. This is 100% expected and 100% within the realm of not even possibility, not even plausibility, likelihood. This is likely how this was going to go. The states that are uncalled are uncalled. They are exceptionally close. And we don't yet know who won. And so to treat election night the way it was treated, right? That this big lead is being run up and someone is, and some networks did a better job than this at others, but you just look at the graphics and it's impossible to have the proper perspective on what's going on. The thing is treated like a sporting event. Like you're a sports fan and you're sitting there, you're like, my team is either up 40 or down 40 and I'm in despair. When in reality, that's not how the world was going. I'm really sour on the commodification of the election, on the horse race of it, if you will, where everything is designed to put you on edge the way a sporting event is, except the consequences are real and it's not just a football game.
To be fair, our viewers who probably spend the vast majority of their income each week on those sporting events, the outcomes are very real as well.
Well, the betting markets are another wild thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah.
I didn't realize the betting markets.
You brought me into that last night. I did not realize Vegas was riding so high and hot on this.
I mean, in less than 12 hours, the odds have gone from Biden 66-33 to Trump, I believe, peaked at like a 75% chance to win, to now that's almost totally flipped. And now Biden's back up to 75% to win.
But isn't there a big fat middle where you're going to make some money off this thing?
Well, I mean, theoretically, you could have laid heavy on Biden. Really, I mean, the smart money would have been you bet Trump when Trump was way low, or you bet Biden when Biden's chances were way low, and you hedge that, and you're probably going to win some money in there somewhere.
Was there a chance to bet the electoral count? Because that's where the money is. Because if that number kept moving, you want to bet the big fat middle. If it just win-loss, you can't make. That's where you want to bet. It's your point spread.
Sure.
You Sportish viewers, you know what I'm talking about. You know where that middle is. It's the Biden wins at like 280. That's where the action is, my friends. You can make some cash right there. We should do a gambling show. We should not do a gambling show. we double our viewership.
I have literally placed one sports bet in my life.
Really?
And I don't think I will ever place another one. The reason being, I have been drunk with too many athletes the night before they play a game to ever want to wager money on their performance. When you've met the people that are in the contest, you don't feel as good about wagering money on their performance.
I will say this: betting on a college athlete is a fool's errand like no other. I mean, forget drunk the night before. This person gets a call from their boyfriend or girlfriend the night before that says, unfortunately, I'm interested in seeing other people. That's it. The game over. By the way, I mean, no one's betting on Cornell cross country meets, but I can tell you, I've shown up and meet, and people are like, how are you going to do? I'll be like, well, Amy doesn't want to go out anymore.
And I'm not even talking about college. I'm talking about professional athletes. Like this is
That's a real
like
problem.
21-year-old amateurs. The other thing
that relationship didn't work out. So now what?
The other thing that struck me,
I literally remember right before like the Ivy League championships, I was all excited. I had a date with some girl that night, and she called that morning. She's like, I'm not feeling that. I mean, it was the classic. I'm working my way. Like, what did I agree to? She worked her way out of that date, and I remember literally walking. This is like the biggest meet of my life. It's the heptagonal championships, walking over indoor championships, and people are like, "You ready?" I'm like, "Well, she's not going to go out with me. I don't think she's ever going to go out with." Coach literally being like, Keith, we've been over the splits. You need to stick to that pen guy. Yeah. She said she wanted to, and now I don't even know.
Do you think there's any way out of the sportification of politics? Like, is that ever going to change?
Not as long as the network structure, and it's going to get even more pronounced. Look, Peacock kind of had, not to get really into the weeds here, because I know what our viewers really want is a deep analysis of the media ecosphere. So if we look at the ownership structure of Amazon and where they're taking chunks, and of course the classic fall of Quibi, so if you like, Peacock had its real.
I can't believe someone wearing that shirt just said "fall of Quibi." It's like all of a sudden I'm in ancient Greece.
but Peacock, by the way, Peacock's not wearing well on me as a name, as a brand.
Yeah, great.
It's not good. I mean, I understand what they're doing as a company, but the brand, they don't have a whole hell of a lot on the Sportish robots, to be quite honest. So Peacock had its first debut last night, really in grand scale. If you consider the way in which networks and media companies are really going to have to make money, I mean, now and in the future, it's going to increasingly demand those kind of avid, loyal niche followings. And I just can't imagine that, if you look at the shows that are successful, whether it's on Fox, MSNBC, even CNN, they are appealing to fans that want to consume that kind of information. And so I dare say, by the way, Steve Kornacki is unbelievable. Steve Kornacki is an American treasure. He really is. The way, what's it, by the way, I mean, with all due respect, I think Bob Woodward's lost a step. Like if you were watching this morning, Bob Woodward, they brought him on to give some deep, heavy analysis of the psychology of Trump. And he spent at least a minute and a half simply complimenting Steve Kornacki. Almost uncomfortably.
There was a moment last night where this sort of crystallized to me. Tell me what you think about this. John King is Mel Kiper. Steve Kornacki is Todd McShay. Like they get wheeled out for one event, and they shine.
It used to be Beano Cook. Beano Cook, who I believed until he passed away, just lived in that chair, and they would just turn him around. And then on Saturday morning, they turn him back and face him to the camera, and he'd be like, "I like Oklahoma. I like." I swear to God, Beano Cook never left that room. He just lived in that. He was like the Empire in Star Wars. He just kind of lived in that chair. So there we are. That's where we are, America. So we've got you up to date. Of course, this is the longest we've gone without looking for updates. And of course, I just looked at my phone and I didn't get it. But so we've spent most of the morning trolling for votes in Michigan. I believe at this point, right?
Yeah. I mean, no updates from Philadelphia County. We still don't know what's going on in Moscow.
I just got a text from a good friend of the program, Jim Cotter, just telling me he's highly distracted by 5:38 at this particular moment. And Jim Cotter, unfortunately, in his day job, when he's not providing commentary for our program, he builds the technology that keeps military helicopters afloat. So I'd like him to focus on the task at hand.
It's going to be a day of
Could
lost
someone
productivity.
calculate, like during the NCAA tournament, there's always a calculation of the loss in work productivity because of the tournament. It's like billions of dollars that America loses. How much productivity, granted, COVID shut the country down anyway. So really doesn't matter. We kind of have time to kill, but how much work time is lost because of this? I mean, how many billions of dollars is lost because of this?
I mean, today is a lost day. They talk about making Election Day a holiday. You also got to make the day after Election Day a holiday now. Because I think whatever happens with the final result, one of, if not the most shocking thing to me, is the vote split. I mean, Biden's going to win by 8 points nationally. This is ludicrous. Biden's going to win by 8 points nationally, but it's the vote split. Way closer, I think, than most people thought it would be, certainly within the realm of expected outcomes. But I don't know a lot of people, and maybe it's because it's the bubble or the silo that I live in, but I don't know a lot of people that thought it was going to be this razor thin, that we were going to be talking about 20,000 vote margins in Wisconsin again.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly didn't hear it on the NPR affiliate in New York City. So I in Kai Wright's podcast, I guess he just didn't mention. No, you're right. But I mean, I don't want to get too political here. It does seem like we really need to revisit the idea of the electoral college. This. Could you imagine a sporting event? You want to extend the metaphor, working this way and being like, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to award whoever wins each minute of the game. We're going to add that up at the end. But some minutes are going to count more than other minutes. So if you win the 17th minute, you get 3 points. I mean, people would stop watching basketball. Although this does sound something the basketball tournament might try next year. What if the basketball tournament, our good friend John Mueller, decides to go electoral college?
I got one even better. Even better. How about fans get to vote on who won every minute of the game, and whoever wins more minutes wins?
So it's just a flat out popularity contest so the NBA just evolves into windmill dunks.
I mean, is that much different than our current political structure? Because again, if we stick with this metaphor of you're watching this program having no knowledge of what happened last night or no knowledge of the electoral process, if we told you this is how it's going to work, one candidate is up 8 points. And by the way, we have no idea if that candidate won. And there's a very legitimate chance that candidate doesn't win. And that candidate's of a party that's won every single election since 2000, at least, won every election since 2004, right? I guess was the last time the Democrats didn't win the popular vote. But they've only won twice. Like, what does that system sound like to you? I was thinking about, one of my favorite sports books is Moneyball. And the subtitle of Moneyball is The Art of Winning the Unfair Game. And it feels an awful lot like the Democrats are the Oakland A's, where, look, they are very, very good. They make the playoffs quite a bit. There are many years where people are like, this is it. This is the year. The A's are going, they're going to win. This is the year. And then they flame out in the first round of the playoffs. And then everybody's like, well, the Yankees, he's got $212 million in the paper. Like, it just feels like the Democrats are playing the unfair game to get the results that they get and be put in the situations that they're put in.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible. I don't know. The whole system is crazy land. And I do think if you had, now some might say, well, it's more analogous to a game where one team, ends up with 500 yards of offense and the other team ends up with 54, but they somehow win 14-7 because there's 15 turnovers or something like that crazy happens. I mean, you can extend that metaphor. By the way, I mean, you wonder, I know, by the way, just in case you're just joining the program, unlike most of our programs, there is no rundown. I believe we are going to talk about Nebraska and the Big Ten. Can we get to that at some point?
I don't know. I mean, honestly,
the NBA might not. The NBA might go under before December. There may not be any more NBA. So enjoy watching your kids play basketball and get COVID at the same time, because that's about all you're going to get. So that's let's just give you a quick rundown of what we're going to talk about today. Big Ten falling apart, Nebraska, the center of the universe, NBA going out of business. There you go. Done. And by the way, add to that, there is Dan Mullen is now officially the craziest person to coach college football I believe, in history. Sorry, Woody Hayes, you're out. Mike Leach, you've got work to do just to get into the top half of the SEC.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin is still running laps around you. Mike Leach, you better start locking people up again, because you got a long way to go. Ed Ogeron, this contest has just started. Dan Mullen is picking fights with the other team and cheering on a COVID crowd to get riled up about, by the way, a game that they're going to win by like resounding numbers. So Dan Mullen, not even a smart crazy, like not even like a Lou Holtz. Like Lou Holtz always was one of the craziest people to coach college football. And I think that was, but Lou Holtz was at least crazy in a way that would make his team win more. Dan Mullen basically just figured out a way to ensure that they are short-staffed against Georgia. Like that was the goal. Look, we got this Missouri game pretty much locked up. What I want to do is make sure that we are outmanned when we play a better team next week. That's the most important thing. Let's get that taken care of. I mean, just classic bad decision. So I just had to get that off my chest. I mean, if we're going to dump on Florida right now, and as a University of Florida graduate, I mean, is Florida the craziest state in the country, by the way? Just the craziest.
Oh, is there even an argument? Just Google Florida man and then come back and try to make an argument for another state.
So, I mean, Florida's nutso. It's just a nutso. And I have a personal affinity for Florida, having lived there for a long time, having gone to graduate school there. But boy, that's a crazy land place. I mean, it really is. I mean, if you've never spent time driving around Florida, you really should do yourself a favor and just kind of experience the insanity. You know, do the Waffle House tour, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or hit every Gator land in the state. Start to figure it out.
Important disclaimer: if you've been to Disney World, you haven't been to Florida.
No. If you've been to Disneyland, you've been to Iowa.
As someone who's been to both Iowa and Disney World, that is tremendously accurate. You want to? I mean, going to the Panhandle. I spent some time in.
I spent a lot of time. Come on. I spent how many years in Gainesville? I mean, come on. That's not the Panhandle, but I've spent more than my share of time in the Panhandle. I used to go to the beach up there. I had a friend who was in the Air Force Base in Pensacola. By the way, you know who are not friendly? The police just on the exurbs of the Pensacola city limits. They do not appreciate speeding. You know,
I have a former coworker who has been received a lifetime banning from Daytona Beach because he drunk drove his car into City Hall.
It's not even funny. It's not even funny.
Fortunately, no one was hurt, so you could laugh.
Yeah, thanks. All right. Well, we're 27 minutes into the program. We really have gone nowhere so far. I got a hard out, so we're not going to.
Speaking of Florida and speaking of great tweets, they set up a polling place at UCF, and they got 100% turnout from that precinct, which means, Keith, that even though Florida was just a loony bin last night, UCF has declared themselves election national champions.
So now we've come to this where we're just throwing out one-liners. It's like a stand.
None of us have gotten a lot of sleep.
By the way, I was not, and I just kept running in last night and giving Andra updates that she, by the way, newsflash, she did not ask for. So, hey, they found some more votes in Kenosha County. Not asked for.
That is one of my other favorite parts of election night is you learn the name. Like these counties enter your consciousness for 4 hours every 4 years. And you're like, yes, Cuyahoga County, tell me more.
Well, again, having lived in Florida for a long time, I know the I-4 corridor quite well. So that is, if you want to lose faith in America or be afraid of America, just drive that corridor, eat at every restaurant along the way, that the vast majority of which have one utensil for cooking, and that's a deep fryer. Literally, if you're like, I like a baked potato, like you get a deep fried potato, whatever it is, any food item you order, pancakes, deep fried, like they do not. The griddle's tough to come by. It's a deep fryer. There are restaurants on International Drive that is the only item. The only item by which you can heat things up. It's a deep fryer. Drive the I-4 corridor and then tell yourself, this is the jurisdiction that historically has decided the fate of America. You will not feel good about yourself You will not feel good. With all apologies to Sportish fans along that I-4 corridor, you, of course, are on our team.
You work for the tourism board? Because I think you had me at fried pancakes. Like all of a sudden, I'm thinking, like, when's the next time I can book a flight?
Is that a food item? Or did we just create something delicious? Or is that just a fritter? Is that just a fritter?
It might be. Yeah, it could be. I don't know.
I feel like that's but pancake batter has a very distinct flavor to it.
But here's what I find odd. Like, isn't pancake batter just essentially what you use to dip the food you want to fry in?
No.
I don't know. I mean, I can.
It's got flour. You do have a point.
I can barely cook a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So I once set off my smoke alarm making microwave popcorn. So like, I have no idea what's going on in the kitchen. But I feel like a pancake is just like the outer shell of the fried food.
It has a batter. I mean, it obviously it is batter, so it has the batter quality to it. Well, I mean, fried. Well, let's extrapolate. I mean, fried cake is a donut, so fried pancake becomes almost a donut-like. We're gonna have to try this. We're gonna have to. I'm gonna look honestly after the show is over. After my next meeting, I'm gonna go ahead and look up fried pancakes. So deep fried pancakes. There has to be something there.
I don't know, because I mean, a pancake is technically, I believe, griddled, right? That would be the way you.
It is, of course. It is fried, but it's pan fried.
Is it though? Because there's no oil in the pan. There's oil
butter.
In the batter.
There's butter on the pan. Otherwise, you got a real dry pancake.
That's a sticky situation.
That,
by the way, was not on the rundown.
What is left on the rundown? Because we are now down, as you know, viewers, and assuming the robots haven't pulled us off the air, we are now down to about 16 minutes. Walk us through something interesting.
So here are some things we could possibly discuss, right? You touched on the NBA and its season, which is supposed to start, now. Possibly being in peril. We could talk more about that and about some of the things that are being fought about.
I don't think they're going to start right now. I don't think they're ready.
We could talk more about politics where, I was thinking a lot like, boy, when you look at how these returns have come in, and no matter what happens, both candidates, I believe, are going to get the 1 and 2 largest share of presidential votes in American history. So whoever finishes second will receive the second most votes of any candidate in the history of our country.
That's a hollow victory. I got to tell you, hollow victory.
Yeah. But, we could talk about how, to me, that underscores the fact that to the people that aren't political junkies and that aren't living in the politics bubble and that aren't getting bombarded with polls every day and don't follow this as a horse race, that to those people, there ain't a lot of difference in the two candidates and in the two parties. And people are either on their team, right? They can use a sports metaphor, either red team or blue team, or, they make their choice based on something that's so, out of the realm of consciousness to the people that follow it every single day and follow every little news nugget. And so I think this is something. I think it's actually, it's true in sports and it's true in politics. So if you really follow politics, and I got into politics a lot when I was a grad student because political media was a big part of our program. So if you really follow politics and you get into it deeply, you end up kind of knowing all these really deep, nuanced things, right? And so when someone's like, "Well, who are you voting?" You're like, "Well, because of this policy," and then, and you kind of go through this long list of reasons. Well, in 1986, he voted for this on this crime bill, and so I'm voting. And then you will have, the average person be like, "Well, why are you voting for?" Be like, "I don't know. I like less taxes." Like they'll just pick this something, and it'll drive that person in the engaged voter, the knowledgeable voter. It will drive them insane. The same thing happens though in sports when someone's like, "Well, why do you think the Eagles are going to win?" And they will cite like decades of historical data, and then the other piece will be like, "Why do you want them?" We'll be like, "Well, I really like that. I like the eagle. Fly, eagle, fly." And so this is why real sports fans cannot go to a sports bar for a big game. They cannot. It makes them like nauseous, hearing that rhetoric, right? Hearing people mispronounce people's names and stuff like that, or get the rules wrong. Like, hey, that should have been a touchdown, right?
things that are just patently not a touchdown. I think the same thing happens in politics, where there are people that are so deeply involved in this whole political infrastructure, and a lot of America is, but the majority of America is not, right?
Not.
The majority of America kind of just votes, right? And so I think it's really hard if you're politically engaged to have a conversation. And sometimes, like, my wife is, she cares about politics, but she's not a junkie like I am. And sometimes, like, there are a lot of conversations that end in my house about politics that end with her saying, "Would you please shut up?" By the way, there are a lot of conversations in my house that end.
You really should just start there and save yourself a lot of time. So I think you make a tremendous point. I'm thinking about, and it's funny you use the Eagles for this metaphor, so I am an Eagles fan. I remember they were in the Super Bowl in 2004. They were playing the Patriots. It was the first time the Eagles had been in the Super Bowl in my lifetime. And I was at a Super Bowl party watching it. And I remember vividly where after that, like 10-minute drive in the fourth quarter where they just horribly mismanaged the clock. They were down 2 scores and they got the touchdown. And there were, 6 minutes, however much left in the game. And there were so many people at the party that were like ecstatic that they're like, "This is amazing. Oh my God, the Eagles are going to come back and win." And I was like, "This is not amazing." Like, and I literally just walked out of the room and went upstairs into another room with a TV and watched the rest of the game by myself in the dark. Cause I was like, you don't want to be around people that are working with, it's almost more frustrating when you've got people, like, certain
that
uncertainty.
intel. Yeah. And also the other frustrating, if you're not really deep in, like, so there's nothing worse. Like, I was a huge Rockets fan growing up, and it's still, I'm a Rockets fan, but was an obsessive Rockets fan. And the idea of being in a setting where someone after a big loss, like a playoff loss, would be like, "Oh, it's okay. They tried really hard," like that, just someone saying that. Like, I couldn't tolerate it. Like, I needed to go someplace where when the Rockets and even a regular season game sometimes, because I was obsessive, I could go into a room. I remember like getting to argue with my mom, and it was like after we were at a game and they had lost like 4 games in a row that I had gone to, and I was starting to think it was me. So, and she was like, "Oh, it's all right. They play hard." And I was like, "It's not all right, Mom. It's not all right." We now have a trend line. We have a trend line of my attendance. So we have a problem here, whether you want to acknowledge it publicly or not. So it's not okay, Mom. So I feel that's the same thing with politics.
Again, as we talk about the sportification of politics, that phenomenon existed last night. And it's existed before, but I think it was especially on display last night and in this election. Because you've got people for whom this election has great consequence, right? Where absolutely. They may literally lose citizenship, rights, absolutely, whatever. Like, there are
and by the way, even if it's not that, relationships, there are people that are literally, and I think these are generally idle threats, but like, "I will leave the country. I will," this is a look. It's not normal for people to start boarding windows before an election. So, there was an acknowledgement that, that, by the way, did that not feel like Maryland before, like, their basketball team was playing in the NCAA tournament, where they're like, "Look, if they win," that was one of my favorite quotes ever from a Maryland administrator, or from a Maryland student, actually, when they asked about riots after games. They were like, "Well, if we win, we're going to riot. And if we lose, we're going to riot." So it was just, there was a general acknowledgement that this is how Maryland students would react to an NCAA basketball game.
And that's another really good analogy, right? Because the amount of students that are burning couches is such a small minority of the amount of people that attend Maryland and are Maryland Terrapin fans. And so you see this in politics too. The voices that get covered the loudest are the ones that have such a stake. And so you're constantly bombarded with this idea that, okay, it's someone who's so far on this side against someone who's so far on that side. And if you're on whichever end you're on, you cannot fathom the fact that someone is on the other. When in the reality of it is, most people have no idea about either of those people, don't have any of the consequences of those people, and exist in this middle where they say things like, "No matter who wins, we're still friends. No matter who wins, someone still makes your sandwich. You can still smile at your neighbor in the morning." And there are some people that hear that, and that is the most offensive thing you can possibly say to them. Because they can be like, it matters so much to some people. And we get bombarded with that narrative that you forget that there's, it could be 80%, right? Is it 80% of people, right? That really, when you think about, does it truly matter to them as a person? it might not. Like,
yeah, it's interesting. I will say there have been more frayed feelings on Facebook. Like, for example, I've had more people come up and say, I cannot believe what this, like, I did not know that this person supported that person, right?
Yeah.
That was a little bit more on display. Like, people being like, did you see the post from, name a person? And that, even to the point where I said something, long story, but I said something at a soccer, one of our soccer games, and I now in my head think that they may have assumed I was supporting the different candidate and almost want to be like, what I was trying to say, right? Like,
yeah.
We're clear on this.
But that's what's so strange about this moment and about the polarization, right? Is that some people have so much at stake and other people simply don't, right? Yeah. And I mean, I 1,000% recognize that this is privilege for me. This is my privilege. My life's not going to change that much no matter who wins. Like, I have my preference of who I'd like to win and the country that I would like to see, and I voted for that. But if that doesn't happen, the fundamentals of my life are going to be more or less fine. Like, there's going to be a little movement in either direction, and I might not be happy with it, but at the end of the day,
you'll be breathing and you won't be in prison. I mean, those kind of things will work out for you. But
at the end of the day, I will say this virus are way lower than other people.
Absolutely, absolutely. There, you 100. That's why you see mobilization amongst. Look, again, we're really getting in the weeds, but you do see a highly mobilized African American vote. You see highly mobilized kind of subsets of the American population who vote, as they like to say, like their life depends on it. And so, so there you go. But there is going to be a lot of fallout on social media. When you talk about like the national realignment, there's going to be some social media realignment. Like there are going to be some. Again, my favorite post though. Does anyone have any word on who won school board election? And by the way, 3 people were running, 2 are going to win. So it's really. And our school is going to be fun.
So we're really not trying to find out who won. We're trying to find out who lost.
Exactly. You're in the minority if you're not on the school board. You really feel like a loser. And you're not a loser. If you're watching Sportish, you're not a loser. You took enormous courage just to put your name on the ballot.
Before we,
by the way, not for nothing. How my kid's school, by the way, my kid's school is now virtual for a couple of weeks, and I don't think that's going to be the end of that. They're trying their hardest. And they were in half days. You know what they arranged yesterday? They had like Zoom sessions with cast members from different Broadway shows.
Wow.
That, by the way, is privilege.
Yeah, I was going to say, you talk about a bunch of people whose lives won't be particularly affected by who wins the election.
Can we still get Hamilton? So my 8th grader, though, they had a Zoom with some cast members from Hamilton. That's not bad.
That's pretty cool. Now, like the Lin-Manuel Miranda, like that level, or like
a step down. More of the big
touring
cast. I think it was the Broadway cast, but it was, just not your lead, more not your top.
I was in Hamilton, Indianapolis.
Still good. Still very good. No, but the other thing that happened, unfortunately, so I've been dealing with a bit of a situation at work. And the other thing I'm starting to realize, I mean, this is an awful thing. So Elliot was on, my youngest was on a Zoom with the cast, I believe, of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. My 5th grade was with them. Great, very appropriate, great. And I believe, and their Zoom, their mics were on, everyone's, and I believe that was the point when I realized I had a bit of a crisis at work. And I said, we are blanked very loud into the phone, not realizing how much voice travels across into his computer. And I believe not long thereafter, Elliot came up, or I overheard Elliot saying, yeah, that was my dad. He just dropped an F-bomb. So I will not be welcome onto the PTO anytime.
It sure has been that kind of couple of days here in America. And then, think of this. How about this? We don't know what's going to happen with the presidential race. Again, it's 9:20 on the morning of
Maybe
November
it's over.
4th.
Maybe it's over.
It could be. We haven't checked it in about 45 minutes. But here's what we do know. billions upon billions of dollars have been spent on the election that occurred yesterday. And depending on how it goes, we're going to be looking at maybe 100,000 vote swing in where that swing would need to be to change the outcome of the presidential election.
Yeah.
And then you look down ballot and things are basically exactly the same.
Yeah.
I mean, every, pickup by one side was essentially negated by the other. There's got to be a better way to spend that money as a country. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. You can't be like, you know what? This makes sense.
I agree with you. I agree with you. There is a better way to spend that money. The only thing I think sometimes gets, and I'm going to get really wonky here. I know this sounds silly, and it was just because as a grad student, I kind of was able to shadow someone who was in political media. That money, I think people assume that money to be lost into the ether. That money is pouring into the economy. There are ad agencies and there are networks and there are film crews and there are writers. And I know there is a better way to, that's not necessarily the best way to do this, but there is an economy. This is not someone taking the money and putting it into a Swiss bank account. There is an economic impact that comes along with an election, and that's where it goes, right? So I understand, unfortunately, it's probably making a disproportionately small number of people very rich. So there's a better way to spend this money, but it's not as if people aren't getting paid to do this. So there's a little bit of myth with that.
In that way, again, oddly like a sporting event, right? These two rivals face off on the field under all the banner of $100 tickets and corporate advertisement. And then one team wins, one team loses. And what do they all do at the end? Hugs and handshakes in the middle of the field. Great game. We'll see you at the next one.
I don't know if there's going to be hugs and handshakes. How about what would happen? You tell me if it's a total tie and they decided to solve this with a half-mile run, who wins? Because here's my theory. I think Trump's got the edge on speed. I think the over/under on a heart attack is high.
You think Trump's got the edge on speed? He's
younger. He's younger.
He's carrying a larger carriage.
Yeah, I'm just talking about top end speed. I'm talking about pure force, power, right? And I think, but I do think he might drop dead in the second lap.
Well, that and more to come on next week's edition of Sportish, at which time we might have a president-elect.
I don't know if that's true. Well, we might. If we don't have a president-elect, this is going to be coming from another bunker somewhere else. So
stay tuned.
It's been quite a show. Quite a show.
Who would win in a half-mile run? Joe Biden or Donald Trump? Thanks to Mike Wallace for turning this thing around quickly. Thanks to all you out there on For the Fans or any of our podcast networks for following along with this rambling, I don't know what it was, diatribe that we just put you through for the last 47 or some odd minutes. His name? Dr. Keith Strudler. I'm Geoff Brault. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Sportish. See you next time.